don't listen to him. It's all Roberto. He's a fabulous thinker, a great entrepreneur. He's become a good friend. And he really, along with a few people in this room I want to mention, put this program together and from scratch. So I think inside your, first of all, so I'm Elliott Steinberg, and I am here on behalf of the directors, my co-directors, of the Saul Zaentz Foundation, Charitable Foundation. So inside your bag, you should each have one of these booklets. If you don't, let us know, but otherwise you should have this. What is this? This is Roberto's story over the last year and a half. This is a story of Baltimore. The people, when you look at this book, the people in this book were never here before. They came out of the Baltimore community, interested in art, interested in creativity, interested in making a change. And Roberto put together this innovation fund to fund their work. You had to apply, you had to be rigorous in your discipline, but he did that. And he was able to put this together. And this book is a story about Baltimore. It's not a story about Johns Hopkins. It's a story about all of you. And what's going to come out of this, I believe, I hope, is a revolution in how universities and cities and people come together. And Baltimore is a great story for that, which I want to talk about for a minute. So, but first, I would not be standing here for sure were it not for Corey Herfberger and Ann Hock, and in an odd way, especially Caroline Senatori, who's the development director of the Baltimore School for the Arts, which is a public high school here in Baltimore. But, and the public part supports academics. But the students in that school are admitted based on their talent for art. If you've never been to that building, if you've never seen the work that they do there, I would absolutely encourage you to go do that. It is an amazing place. And more amazing because 65% of the students are children of color, and they have a 100% graduation rate. And they have a 100% graduation rate in college after 7 years. How is that possible? Why? How do people do that? The same way that the people who came here to make these films, it's about passion. It's all about passion. Which brings me to talking about Saul Zaentz. Some of you may or may not know who he was, but you're certainly going to know his work. So Saul Zaentz was a record producer. He was and a filmmaker. He built the largest, from scratch, from nothing. Didn't even finish high school. He built the largest independent jazz label in the world, Fantasy Records. And he collected, starting in his 50s, he collected 27 Oscars for films. You're going to know all the films, whether you know Saul or not. So there was One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. There was The Unbearable Lightness of Being. There was Amadeus. There was The English Patient. And a whole series, 10 films, 27 Oscars, 3 Best Picture Oscars. No one has done more than that. But that's only half the story. The other half of the story is that Saul's passion was social justice and putting a dent in poverty. And so we're here in Baltimore to make that dent a little bit bigger, if we can. And in order to do that, you need entrepreneurs. Saul was a great entrepreneur. No, the word no was not part of his vocabulary. Solutions, yes. No, no. So he was able to take on challenges, and if you're familiar with the films I just mentioned, you would think to yourself, who the hell in their right mind would do these films? They're extraordinary works of art. And that was Saul. He was an amazing entrepreneur who could work and had to work outside the Hollywood system. He financed these films all himself. And And yet, he treated everybody, absolutely everybody, with dignity and respect. The people who worked with him on his films would come back in a second to work on another film. He never micromanaged their art. He respected what they were doing. So what he did is exactly what we need to do. He built a community of innovators. And I know you wouldn't be in this room at this seminar, at this program, if you weren't innovators. But we can't do it alone. We must do it together. And, you know, I really want to thank you for giving up your Saturday to come here and listen to these speakers and hopefully learn what you can. And you are the vanguard, all of you. You're the vanguard of the 21st century reinvention and transformation of media and art. We're in a new century. And all the rules, legacy rules of filmmaking and storytelling that existed in the 20th century, my century, don't exist anymore. And we need to recognize that. And we need to move on and reinvent ourselves in order to be successful. Our children need to reinvent themselves. So, this is a time, I believe, for us to create a new paradigm in film and media. We live now in an age of acceleration, an age of disruption, an age of reinvention, an age of transformation, an age of adaptation, and an age of connectivity. We all need to connect with each other. That's why there are all these social platforms that are so popular. But the fact of the matter is, that just points out the need to relate to each other. Doing it in a tweet or in an email or whatever is not the same. We have to talk to each other. We have to create together. So, and we don't have a moment to lose. There's an urgency. If we want to impact our environment, if we want to do things, for example, up until I started working with Roberto, I'd never been here. I'd never been to Baltimore. But now I've been here a bunch. It's a fabulous city. I don't know if all of you are from Baltimore or other places, but this is an amazing place. This is an amazing place to be an artist. This is an amazing place to be a thinker. This is an amazing place to do creative work. I understand about the history, and I understand about implicit bias and all of those things. But you know what? The work that I hope you all had a chance to see some of the 3D films this morning, or if not, that you'll do it later in the day. But that material, that technology, puts us in other people's shoes. We can feel what their lives were like. We can feel what they're going through. It's a way to create empathetic relations and feelings. And it has to be about empathy. It has to be about connectivity. It has to be about building things together. Universities, especially universities, also nonprofits, but I will tell you not ours, live in silos. They're always concerned about raising money. We don't raise any money. They're concerned about raising money. They're concerned about their constituencies, about keeping their information secret, not sharing. For Christ's sake, sharing is what everybody is doing, right? Online, in the whatever. So I want to break down all those silos. And that's what we're doing right here at Johns Hopkins, thanks to the people that I mentioned. And Saul Zaentz believed absolutely that you had to tear those down. And that's why he was able to create the kind of work, art that he did. In the music business, with his jazz label, just think about what happened in the music business. You go from 78s to 45s to long play to cassettes to CDs. And then to online music, right? So you have to compete and constantly be reinventing how you do your work. So he came up with some absolutely fabulous ideas that, of course, everybody else then copied. So when CDs came out, and this is just an aside, this little story, he had all of these artists, great jazz artists. He would take their work that were on these 78s and 45s and long plays and so on, and he would put them together. So, and reissue them as the jazz giants play Sammy Cahn. The jazz giants, you know, play George Gershwin. The jazz giants do this. And it was enormously successful. And the other reason that he was enormously successful in the record business, besides his jazz label, was that he was the one who created and grew and founded Creedence Clearwater Revival. So he saw in them what I see in you. And he was able to take them and help them create the kind of work that turned him, you know, into a giant of the rock era. So you can do this. And we have these new technologies that are just waiting for you to use them in very creative ways. If you talk, you're going to talk to all these people who are going to come up on this stage. Don't let them off the hook. Push them, question them. Make them respond to what you need to know so that you can begin to think in different colors about the world. So, you know, Paul Tuff, who's a journalist in New York, was writing about implicit bias and how children succeed. And he said, he verified this, that 94% of the population believe that our society should do what is necessary to make sure that everyone has an equal opportunity to succeed. You wouldn't believe that if you look around the neighborhood. But that, in fact, is how people really feel. And we need to bring that out. That was Saul's mantra. In essence, that sentence is the definition of free enterprise, and one we need to advance as our watchword. At the end of the day, everything is about fairness and economic development, as Roberto said. So, anyway, as I said, we don't have a moment to lose. And I want to try to reflect the urgency of this in a statement that was made to us by Hal Varian, who was the chief economist at Google. And here's what he said. He said, 1 billion hours ago, modern Homo sapiens emerged. 1 billion seconds ago, the IBM personal computer was released. And 1 billion Google searches ago was this morning. So, partners, let's go get them together. Thank you.